Thank you for joining us. My name is Catherine Achienga, and this is Walking the Talk. In this week's edition of Walking the Talk, we focus on the National Police Service. What really is its mandate when we talk about the renewed war on graft? The government has said that corruption is a national security threat. But how really do we eliminate this threat? How does the police come into all this? What is their role? What are some of the challenges they face? And is it possible to end the war on corruption? Well, joining me this evening, we are discussing with the National Police Service spokesperson, that is Charles Owino, who will be giving us some insights on what really the police are doing in the renewed war on graft. Thank you very much for, agreeing to see us. And I want us to begin from, currently we talk about the National Police Service. Before we used to talk about the National Police Force. Has this in any way, changed how you interact with the public?
I would want to correct you. We used to talk about the Kenya Police
The Kenya
Force.
Police, yes.
And now we talk about the National Police Service. In 2004, we came up with a strategic plan as a police service. And we wanted to have both Kenya Police and Administration Police as one service. And when we came to the Constitution 2010, we did not manage to get one service, which would have been called Kenya Police Service. But now we got, yes, the National Police Service, whose head was going to be an Inspector General, as we had envisaged to have an Inspector General. But we now had the Kenya Police Service and Administration Police Service. And also in the Act, we now had a more independent criminal Directorate of Criminal Investigation, the DCI, which initially used to fall under the Commissioner of Police, and it was just a formation. But now it falls under the Office of the Inspector General, but it has some little independence in the sense that the Director or the Director of Criminal Investigations reports directly to the Inspector General of the National Police, and not the DIG of Kenya Police. And also with the service, people felt that we need to serve people. Therefore, it becomes a service, not force. Not the initial meaning that maybe it had, and that is our position. Yes.
So has it changed how you interact with the public, how the public perceives the police?
Many a times, the police comes from the community. It is an institution that the public decides. That's the way you decide that you want to shower. If you shower well, you become clean. If you don't shower, you are dirty. And the police does not belong to any other individual other than the public. All instruments that the police use belong to the public. And therefore, when the public improves its standards in the manner in which they do their things, then definitely there is no way the police can remain behind, because it is an institution by the people for the people. Yes.
All right. Let's look at the renewed war on graft. Yes. In your view, would you say we are making strides as a country?
Well, first of all, we must admit as a country that graft has been a problem with us. One of our major challenges has been corruption in almost all sectors, in almost everything that we do. People have accepted corruption as part of their lives. And just the same way on what I said earlier about the image of the police, graft is not practiced exclusively. Graft is practiced within community. And it is the community to say no to graft, because a government official who is involved in graft would not practice graft if public are not ready to give bribes or participate in corruption activities. And therefore the public generally is very important in the war. There must be an agreement. You must ask yourself, how come maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago we were not doing what we are doing today? You'll find much of it is out of the way public wants to conduct their affairs. For example, if you are a DCI and if you arrest a person who has committed, who is involved in corruption, maybe a very big fish, that is involved in corruption. You arrest a cabinet secretary that is involved in corruption. And maybe the executive is not willing. You can't survive. But we are able to do what we do today because the executive has given us the support that we require. So it is us who can now fail the government, but the government, the executive, has given us full support in the war against graft. So the number one, the major shift in what we have seen is the willingness, the support that we are getting from the executive in the war against graft. Because as I've always told people, people never like my statement, that the police is simply a tool of the executive. People never want to hear that. But practically, what happens is that when a head of state is given instruments of power, we are some of the instruments of power that is given to him. And he can use us in the best way. Though sometimes we may not do the right thing, but many a times he can give us very clear directives. And he has put it clearly that we must fight graft. And I see that as the major shift that we have, that we are having open support. We could have been having support, but it was silent. But now what we have is open support to fight graft. And therefore, there is no way and there is no excuse we can give and say we cannot fight graft.
So what is your role in the fight against graft? How is it that you come in?
First of all, as police, police is the mother of all institutions responsible for enforcement of all laws and regulations. We are the only institution, security institution, that cuts across all institutions. We enforce the law of the forest, we have enforced the law of wildlife, we have enforced the law in agriculture. We enforce all laws and regulations of the land, the police. Even EACC, for example, if they want to charge anyone, they'll charge that person using a register of a police station. And that is why today we have gazetted EACC as a police station. And we have posted an officer commanding police station in EACC building so that they are in a position to draft charges. So the truth of the matter is that the mother institution in enforcement of all laws and regulations is the police. And if you go to the Police Service Act 2011, the function of the DCI, number one function is to collect and provide criminal intelligence. And the major function is to undertake investigations on serious crimes, including economic crimes, money laundering, terrorism, cybercrime, among others, human trafficking, homicide. All that is the role of CID. And corruption falls majorly under economic crime. And that is how we find ourselves involved in this. But apart from this, the government has come up with a national multi-agency task force to fight corruption. So and this task force involves a number of institutions. Because when we talk about economic crime, the mother institution, when it comes to issues of economy laundering, money laundering, and so on and so forth, is the central bank. So central bank is the regulatory authority in terms of management of finances and money and budgetary. And then we have the asset recovery as an institution, because if you are found corrupt, then we'll involve the asset recovery. We have the financial regulatory center.
With, all these institutions that are under the mother
I've said we are the mother institution.
Yes.
And that is why when you even look at the heads of these departments, majority of them have passed through us in one way or another. And we work together as security agencies, as a national multi-agency task force to fight crime. And that is why you find DPP is involved. DPP has a role, because DPP is the authority for charging. They have to read the files, they have to confirm this evidence, and then they authorize somebody to be charged. We have the Attorney General, who is the person involved in making laws, guiding us in making of laws, and sometimes even interpretation. We have the Financial Regulatory Center. We have the asset recovery. So we work as a national multi-agency task force to fight corruption.
Insofar as challenges are concerned, what would you say are some of the major challenges that you're facing in trying to execute your mandate?
Well, one of the major challenges is societal greed. Because, you know, society can even vote out a government. Society can even vote out a government. So any person running government must play a very safe role when you are dealing with society. When corruption has reached a level where we call it a group of mafia, persons who can even plan to kill you. So you must be very strategic when you are fighting corruption, because corruption fights back. So the major problem is the fighting back of corruption. But it is also based on communities, the society itself. Because you find today, for example, when you go for elections, for any position, you find that even in primary school, the person who wants to head the school and is voting may opt to buy sweets for his pupil colleagues. So it has heightened so much that you want to elect an MCA, you want to elect a member of parliament. If you're a poor man, your chances of winning are very limited. Nobody is getting elected on ideologies. Nobody is getting elected based on your integrity. You see, it's a major challenge. And therefore, what happens is sometimes you find that the highest bidder maybe takes. There are a few cases where the highest bidder don't take, but there are many cases where the highest bidder takes. So when a society is developed in that nature, that even to get to high office, you need to pay people, it amounts still to corruption. And you find that society is more gullible to persons without money, without questioning the source of money. Today, give an opportunity between a rich man and a poor man, the probability that you'll go for the rich man is very high. People given an opportunity to elect a poor man and a rich man, the probability of electing a rich man is very high. But the question is, do people ask what is the background? So the biggest challenge is how much gullible the society that we live in is to corruption and money and wealth, without questioning the source of wealth.
So is it possible to change this narrative?
Yes, it is possible to change this narrative. It starts with us. And I said that it takes one man to sacrifice his position. For example, it takes the head of government to say whether I'm going to be popular or not, we must fight corruption. And in that process, he must give very firm instructions to security agencies, the heads of security agencies, that we might fight corruption. And that he must give conditionalities that if you don't fight corruption, then I have to get another person who can fight corruption. You've seen, without fear or favor, that the sitting DCI has done very well in terms of fighting corruption. And one of our major achievements is that there is deterrence and fear. Because even leaders, even cabinet ministers, even governors, you know what happened to the governor of Kiambu when it came out that when you are charged, then you cannot be allowed to go back to that office. You can see the trauma, the fear that it comes up with. And when there is respect, even if it comes out of fear, then there is deterrence. So the first thing is the fact that people are aware that if you are corrupt and the government sends the DCI or the government sends the head of EACC, then definitely you are going to suffer. You are not going to pay a bribe and come out. You have no avenue. So far I can say that the biggest achievement is that the integrity that the persons who have been given positions to fight crime has been very high, and that people are sure that when you give out a case, for example, to DCI, then action will be taken. You have even seen how the office of the DCI has managed homicide cases, people who have been killed by others. You've seen that we have almost 100% managed to nab with evidence persons who have committed, who have killed others. And that gives an opportunity that people will fear. So when it comes to corruption, without fear or favor, we are taking action against individuals. And that is why there was a time when it reaches Friday, you find the CEOs either want to take off from office because they think today we will be nabbed and so on.
And I think that time we saw you now being accused, you know, as the police force of playing politics.
Yes.
Yes.
It's normal that if you have been used to impunity and maybe unfortunately the impunitive protection is lost, you have to fight. You know, it's like a thief who has stolen and the mob is chasing him and he becomes very intelligent. He also starts telling people, "Mwizi, mwizi," you know. The thief is running and the thief is saying, calling out, "Mwizi, mwizi." So you, the first person to meet him, believes he's not the thief, believe there is another thief ahead of him. And therefore, you will leave him, only to meet the people chasing him, and they tell you, "Hapana, mwizi ndio ule." Are you getting me?
Yeah.
That is the practice, that a person who has committed graft does not want to be prosecuted. He wants to imagine that there are other thieves who should be prosecuted. And that is why we will say this prosecution is selective. But what I would say is simple. Fine. If you are corrupt, another person is corrupt and we've not caught him, good, give us information, but we will still catch you. We'll take you to court, but we'll use that information to catch the next thief. So if you would be saying, "I'm being prosecuted for nothing," that's a different case. But if you are being prosecuted for nothing, then you'll be able to defend yourself in court. But when you are saying, "It is only me who is being prosecuted," no, give us information for the other person who was involved in corruption together with you. We take you to court and we also pick the other person. Yes.
But is the public, you know, really aware of what you're trying to do? Because sometimes you've seen politicians arrested and then, you know, the whole public comes and stands behind them, you know, saying that, you know, our person is being persecuted. And
usually it is not about the whole community. The whole community is Kenya. Today, if I get into trouble, then it's Achienga and the Luo community may be shouting. That is not Kenya.
So is it tribal?
Are you getting me? It becomes a tribal game. So what happens is that what I can say is that if you are being prosecuted honestly for having committed an offense, there is nothing that we would fear. Even if there's a third party who has not been prosecuted, but who would be prosecuted. And who knows, if you think I'm protecting so-and-so, then tomorrow I may not be in a position to protect him. Just like maybe yesterday you are being protected, and today you're not getting the protection. So nobody is safe when you are involved in graft. Whether you are prosecuted today, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, you will still be prosecuted. Yes.
What about in terms of whistleblowing? Are you seeing a lot of Kenyans coming out and giving you information?
Yes, a number of Kenyans are whistleblowers. They give information. It's only that many a times you have to keep. We have to keep the identities of the persons who have. We don't make them public many a times, who have given us information. And you know, sometimes even people get involved in graft together, then one eats everything and leaves the other one without anything. He gets annoyed, he comes. But then again, in the long run, you know what the law provides for. Yes.
In terms of capacity, do you have the capacity to be able to sieve through, you know, the cases that are genuine and the ones that, you know, are like the ones you've mentioned?
One, we have a lot of intellectual capacity because many officers have gained both local and international training. What may be a challenge sometimes may be equipment. For example, you want to undertake DNA, or if you go sometimes to very well developed, you know, there must be infrastructure. For example, I can tell you that one of the reasons why we easily fought bank robberies, you rarely hear about bank robberies,
yes,
was the coming of the CCTV. Because when the CCTV came in, and therefore it meant if you steal, even if you run away, we will still have your face.
Yeah. And
in the long run, we will catch up with you. So at least, you see, it became unnecessary to get involved in that kind of crime, and then you are caught. There will be levels. Like now, you heard of our Huduma number. you can see that we are taking fingerprints of even people who have not gotten IDs, the younger people who have not gotten IDs. Currently, we keep records for criminals. So that means that a person who has ever been a criminal, if he breaks your window and steals your laptop, unless we go to register of persons, which we are still not connected, it may be a problem. And that is why we are bringing in the issue of Huduma number, where we are going to have much information under one jacket. Yeah. And we will have fingerprints and a number of information. That means if we have all this information for 80% of the population, it means that the probability of catching you when you break somebody's house and we pick your fingerprints is very high. So the technical abilities also matter. There are countries where almost everybody's DNA is kept in a data bank. And that means if you commit rape, even if we don't get your face, then through your DNA we are able to pin out and say you are so and so. So what is taking place is that we have developed actually, the government has put in a lot of money for a very big forensic lab at CID headquarters. Yeah. What is going on now is equipping the forensic lab. And we are even transferring the government chemist from where it is next to Kenyatta National Hospital to the CID headquarters, so that we get real-time results on whatever we are looking for. So in terms of intellectual ability, we are on top of things. In terms of equipment and instruments used for purposes of making our investigation easy, the government is putting their best, and I know with time we are going to fully equip the lab, and that will really be supportive to us.
What about the automation within the police stations? Yes. We've heard you talking about automating the occurrence book. Where is it at this point?
Already you see there's a launch of the digital occurrence book, which the Inspector General did at Kasarani Police Station. Why do we call it a pilot study? It's because the occurrence book is a document, a permanent document that is quite accountable, in the sense that we enter the first occurrence book at midnight. Today is 3rd. So today midnight, today 2nd, today midnight, we will close our occurrence book at 23:59 hours. That is 11:59 p.m. We will be closing our occurrence book for 2nd. And at 12:00, we will be opening the occurrence book for the new day, 3rd of December. And every time a report is made, we serialize the occurrence book, number 1, number 2, up to the last number, 69, 100, 105 records, and we close it. That means tomorrow, if you want to insert another information in this occurrence book, you cannot insert it. It's quite accountable. Now, we are undertaking the digital OB. We are undertaking also the pilot study before we roll it out to the whole country to check, could our system be having weakness, especially of insertion of information once it has been closed and concluded, because that is the main issue in the occurrence book. Now, it will help you get a real-time reporting system. We want to see if we can come up with a system where you can even access and make your report, and then we transfer it to the main jacket. We can maybe have a draft section, and then we have where it is verified, confirmed, and then put on the main jacket. So we want a real-time system, and also when it is digital, you know, currently occurrence book we keep them for 10 years because of the bulky nature and the spacing and so on.
So what happens to them after 10 years?
But with the digital, it means we can keep it for as many years as possible in a lifetime.
So what happens after the 10 years?
After 10 years, we were allowed to do away with the OBs. But you see, there may be a particular OB with a very serious information, which you may decide not to destroy but keep. Yes, even after the 10 years.
So what other loopholes perhaps are you trying to seal with the ongoing reforms within the police force to ensure efficiency?
I don't think we are at the level of reforms anymore. We are now at the level of transformation. Because reforms, when we were coming about reforms, is when we were just cleared we had just finished with the Constitution, and now we wanted to implement the Constitution, where we developed laws. We developed the Police Service Act, we developed the Police Service Commission Act, we developed the IPOA Act. Those were reforms. Those were reforms. Now what we are doing is implementation of what we call reform now, so that we can undertake what we call what? A transformation agenda. So what we are in currently is not just a reform. You cannot reform forever. It's now, you know, you've been born. The process of you getting developed from conception to the time of delivery, when it ends, it ends. Now what remains is growth and development. So even us, where we have reached now, it's not about reform. We have all the regulations, we have all the laws, we have what it takes. Now we are undertaking a transformation agenda.
So what is left in your entry in the transformation agenda?
Transformation continues on a daily basis, depending on, we have to keep on improving. And you know, crime also evolves. And every day as crime evolves, you also have to get new systems of managing crime, and so on and so forth. And therefore, there is no time we will now say the transformation has ended. Just the other day, we did not require armed personnel carriers as police. We did not require MRAPs as police, because we were not involved in any war with anybody. But now when we started getting attacked along the borders, and we must have officers along the border serving the local mwananchi there, we had now to acquire armed personnel carriers, we had to acquire MRAPs. These are tools that would otherwise only have been acquired by the military, but now we have to acquire. So the transformation process depends on the situation of the day. What happens tomorrow? We didn't have much issues of terror attack the other day, but now because of frequent terror attack, we have now developed an anti-terror units which we are using to fight terrorism. So it depends. We don't know what will come tomorrow, next year, 10 years to come. When they come, we have to adjust to the situations on the ground.
Let's look at, one of the pertinent issues that was there when you were, talking about reforms, which now you're saying is a transformative agenda. The issue about the welfare of police.
Yes.
What have you been able to achieve so far?
We have achieved quite a lot in terms of welfare of police. I can say that, yes, we have not had much impact in the increase of our salaries, but we have had an impact in the improvement of our job groups, where you find, for example, a senior superintendent of police was in job group L, and now you still maintain the same rank, but now you are in job group N, which was a job group for a senior assistant commissioner of police. Yeah. So you find that that kind of improvement improves on the welfare of the officers. Another important, in fact, a very important welfare is the medical insurance, which now we have. We have a comprehensive medical insurance that even when officers are injured, they're able to get best treatment, they're able to get normal treatment with their families, their wives and children. We are also able, largely, to compensate fairly when officers die in the line of duty. So that is also a transformation. Another transformation that we have had is the housing project, where we were staying so many in one house because it was mandatory to live in the police lines. Only inspectors and above were living out. But now we have been authorized to have officers of other ranks stay out of the police lines. So all this involves welfare of the police.
We'll be looking a little bit about the housing, but for now let's take a quick break. Of course, we are talking to the police spokesperson, that is Charles Owino, who is giving us insights on some of the things that they're doing within the police to ensure that the renewed war on graft remains on course. You're watching Walking the Talk. Let's take a short break, but we will be back in just a bit.